They called him the Ghost, not because he was invisible, but because he was always there watching, listening, walking silently with a metallic echo in every step. His name was Henry Blake, 71 years old, a retired sergeant major. But no one called him that. To the young recruits at Fort Durham, he was just the one-legged relic who haunted the mess hall and polished rifles no one touched anymore. "Why is he even here?" whispered Private Reynolds on his third week. "Probably needs to feel useful," another chuckled. "Just let him limp around." But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that Henry didn't stay because he needed the army. The army needed to remember him. His right leg had been lost to a landmine during Operation Firefall in '91. Since then, he walked with a titanium prosthetic, smooth, mechanical, and cold like the silence he carried. No medals on his chest, no speeches in the hall, just the empty stare of a guy who'd seen more than most could imagine. That night, everything changed. It started with a blackout, a split-second darkness followed by silence, and then alarms. Screaming red lights pulsed across the barracks. Intrusion. The siren's wail wasn't just a baton. This was real. Young soldiers scrambled, confused, unarmed, unready, and then Henry appeared, not as a ghost but as a storm. He grabbed a rifle from the emergency rack, checked its chamber with a flicker of muscle memory, and barked, "Get low, lock the south doors, now!" They froze. This wasn't the silent janitor they ignored. This was something else, something ancient, something unshakable. Private Reynolds, pale-faced, stumbled toward the radio room. The signal was jammed. Henry moved fast, faster than anyone thought he could. The metal leg thudded against the concrete like a war drum. He had trained generations of men once. Now he was training them again, with bullets in the air. Enemy footsteps echoed down the corridor. And that's when Henry, the forgotten one-legged ghost, raised his voice like thunder. "You want to live? Then follow me." The recruits stumbled after him, half in fear, half in awe. Henry moved through the facility with purpose. The way his body shifted, the way he gripped the rifle, the way he knew exactly where to go, it was like the building itself obeyed him. In the chaos, he was the only still point. They reached the secondary armory, usually locked, usually forgotten. Except Henry had a code. He punched it in without hesitation. The heavy door slid open, revealing dust-covered crates and sealed lockers. The lights inside flickered on, casting sharp lines across his face, a face that had once led men into fire. "Arm yourselves, no safeties, this is not a drill," he said. Private Sweeney looked like he was about to cry. "Sir, I didn't ask for courage," Henry cut in. "I asked for instinct. You'll find yours when the bullets start flying." Boom! A detonation shook the floor. Somewhere in the northern wing, a breach. Henry didn't flinch. The others did. "West Corridor, they'll flank from there," Henry muttered, scanning the map in his head. They moved, down the tight hallways, past red emergency lights that stung the eyes. Outside the training yard, a shadow moved, and Henry raised his rifle. Pop, one shot, silence again. The recruit stared. "That wasn't luck," he said, not looking at them. "That was 30 years of not blinking when it mattered." Behind them, the fire doors clanged shut. The building was sealing itself. Someone somewhere was trying to trap them inside. Henry didn't care. He had trapped things before, too. They reached the surveillance room. Screens cracked, half blacked out. One camera feed still worked, and on it they saw a masked intruder planting something beneath the main generator. Henry's eyes narrowed. "That's not just sabotage," he whispered. "That's the kind of bomb that buries truths." "What do we do?" whispered a recruit. Henry exhaled. "We don't wait." He moved again. It's like the leg wasn't metal, like the years hadn't passed. He led them down a back maintenance corridor one only old staff remembered. The path to the generator was long, dark, and crawling with danger. But Henry had always walked in darkness, and this time he wasn't alone. Each step echoed, a deep metallic thump that cut through the silence of the corridor. Henry's prosthetic leg kept pace, steady and unwavering. Behind him, the recruits followed, hearts racing, eyes flickering with fear. But Henry didn't slow. He walked not just as a man, but as a ghost bearing the weight of everything he had once survived. "Beyond this point, there's no light," he said. "Only instinct." Sweeney muttered, "My instinct says to run." Henry glanced at him. "Mine says to fight. Lucky for you, mine's seen a few more wars." Near the end of the corridor, Henry stopped. He placed a hand against the wall. "Behind this is the generator
What do we
room."
do?
Someone
Mocked
from the inside. "We listen," Henry replied. And in the quiet they heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps, something heavy, someone working, maybe a bomb, maybe worse. Henry pulled out a tiny screwdriver. He knelt beside a wall panel. "I installed this override years ago," he murmured. The panel gave way, revealing a narrow shaft, only wide enough for one. "I'm going in." Before anyone could stop him, he vanished into the dark. Inside it was cramped, dusty, and silent, but Henry had breathed in tighter spaces. He'd survived worse. In fact, he'd lost his leg just beyond this wall, and now he was returning, not for revenge, but resolution. At the end of the shaft, he peered through a vent. The masked intruder was placing the black bag beneath the generator. His fingers worked quickly. Henry narrowed his eyes. He slid the vent open. The moment his boot hit the floor, the wood creaked. The masked man turned, sharp, sudden. They froze. One battle hardened, the other cornered. "You don't have to do this," Henry said. "You're too late," the man replied, reaching for the bag. But Henry didn't wait. He lunged, pain in his knees, but precision in his hands. They fought. Fists, elbows, knees. Old soldier versus young saboteur. Finally, the man collapsed. Henry opened the bag, expecting wires and explosives. Instead, documents, a hard drive, classified files, proof of betrayal. As Henry squinted at the labels, a gunshot rang out behind him, but it wasn't aimed at him. He turned. The recruits stood there, weapons drawn. "You didn't leave us behind," Sweeney said. Henry nodded. "Men like me never do." The darkness had given way to silence, and the silence to truth. Henry stared at the drive in his hands. Labels, names, coordinates. Some of the names he recognized, and that made it worse. The traitor could have worn the same uniform he once did. "This has to get out," he muttered. "What about the bomb?" asked Sweeney. "This is worse than any bomb." Henry turned toward the corridor. "But first we get out." He remembered old protocols. The main door's locking system wasn't linked to the generator. But if the emergency power was down, the locks might be frozen. No matter. For men like Henry, no door stayed locked forever. "Follow me." He led them down a forgotten service hallway. At the end was a wall that once held access to maintenance tunnels, long abandoned, half buried under years of disuse. Dig. They didn't hesitate. Using pipes, rods, broken panels, they scraped through dirt and concrete. Slowly the path revealed itself. Henry paused before they entered. "You go. I'll stay." "No," someone began. "That's an order." Silence fell. He looked down at the drive again. Sometimes the weight of the past can only be carried alone. One by one they entered. Sweeney was the last. Before crawling in, he turned. "We won't forget you." Henry nodded once. At the other end, the night was still heavy, but dawn was coming. A new day had begun. The young men emerged from the tunnel with a storm behind their eyes. They were free, but one of them, Henry, had stayed behind. As they walked, Sweeney kept glancing back, waiting for a boom, a gunshot, anything. But the night was still. A few miles from the camp, they stopped. What now? Who would they trust with the drive? The military? The press? Or would this truth be buried again? Then a jeep pulled up. A woman stepped out. Older, decorated, stars on her shoulders. "You're Henry's team?" Sweeney nodded slowly. She walked closer carefully. In her hand, an old insignia. "He gave this to me 10 years ago, said, 'Someday the right ones will come.' I suppose he meant you." They handed her the drive. She accepted it gently. "You're safe now, but where is he?" Sweeney looked away. "He stayed, on purpose." She bowed her head. "That's how he always was." Weeks later, there was a memorial. Nothing official, no records, no name engraved. But every person there knew. They knew who the silent hero was. At the back, Sweeney stood alone. A reporter approached. "Would you say something about him?" The young man paused, then smiled faintly. "He was a soldier without a leg, but we all march in his footsteps."